Video Game Storytime released 2 videos about Super Mario 3D All-Stars that I want to go over. In a rare instance, they bring up a good point that I haven't seen echoed anyplace else. What did they say this time? First, let's go over the usual hurdles with them.
The worst kept secret in Nintendo history has finally been announced. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a collection of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, has finally been confirmed for the Nintendo Switch. There's no prizes for guessing why Nintendo wanted to re-release these popular Mario titles on the Switch. The real question is, why on earth did it take this long?
Here's a better question. Why were you expecting it for this long?
After all, Mario 64 was one of the original titles available on the Virtual Console when this service debuted on the Nintendo Wii. When the Switch was first announced, fans were certain that not only Mario 64 but also Mario Sunshine would be available soon after launch.
So since fans just blindly assumed that it was supposed to be true? How much do these fanboys really think they know Nintendo?
Instead, it's taken 3.5 years for the 3D Mario titles to be ported to the Switch, and the rest of Nintendo's GameCube and Wii libraries are nowhere to be seen.
So what? Don't you own a GameCube or Wii? Or are Nintendo's new games just too boring?
Looking back at the history of the Switch, it's clear that this was actually the plan all along. According to a Nintendo spokesperson all the way back in 2018, there are a variety of ways in which classic games from Nintendo and other publishers are made available on Nintendo Switch, such as through Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo eShop, or as packaged collections. From the sounds of it, Nintendo has always been considering 3D All-Stars style game bundles on Switch, but that may not have always been the company's plan A for re-releases. So why, if Nintendo knew that fans were eager to play classic 3D Mario titles on the Nintendo Switch, why did the company make us wait this long? Simple. Nintendo genuinely did bet everything on the Switch's online subscription service.
Or, they simply don't want a 64-bit game to be the most played game on their platform. Great, so in other words, they don't want players to pay for a single title, but rather pay a monthly fee for a service. Who is getting tired of her voice yet?
While a packaged Mario collection had always been a possibility, the company was eager to focus first and foremost on Nintendo Switch Online. Also in 2018, then president of Nintendo Reggie Fils-Aimé was asked in an interview how fans would be able to play Nintendo 64 games in the future. He made it clear that the plan was to release new titles on the Nintendo Switch Online service, saying, "We've now been very clear that as the consumer looks forward to engaging with our classic content, that is going to be happening more and more with the subscription service." Similarly, in a 2019 shareholder meeting, Nintendo Representative Director and President Shuntaro Furukawa said, "Subscription-based services are becoming common in all sorts of industries, not just the games industry. Those sorts of services have already been implemented within the game industry, and it was even a popular topic of conversation at this year's E3. Nintendo also offers the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, Nintendo Switch Online service, which allows members of Nintendo Switch Online, a subscription-based service, to play NES games. We believe that we need to further enrich these sorts of services in the future. Nintendo's policy is that we will consider whether each product we offer is suited to a subscription model as we expand our business in the future." From this, it's clear where ideas like Super Mario 35 have come from. The NES Mario Battle Royale seems like a logical way to further enrich Nintendo's subscription service. In the same shareholder meeting, President Furukawa was also asked specifically about N64 and GameCube games on the Switch. He said, "We cannot provide any new information about how or in what form software developed for past platforms will be delivered to consumers in the future. Nintendo Switch Online is just one of a variety of forms in which consumers could play past titles, and we'd like to deliver them in some form. We're very aware that many of our customers have been asking for a way to play older titles like this." From the sounds of it, Nintendo went into the Switch era expecting that a Netflix-style subscription model was the smartest way of providing a virtual console-style library of games.
The best way? Or the way that would best benefit them? Because if all these classic games were to be available for download on the eShop, the majority of players would only gravitate towards a couple of them. A subscription service would instead get players to keep paying periodically while offering additional games that otherwise wouldn't even sell on their own.
It seems that Nintendo struggled to make this system a reality, and as time went on, the company heard increasingly loud and enthusiastic feedback from fans asking for a better way to access classic games.
What? So the only reason why they're releasing this pack of games was because it wasn't possible for them to release them on Nintendo Switch Online? Well, here's a news flash. These Mario games are not original ports. They're updated versions to better perform on Switch. For example, Sunshine has widescreen support. If it were the classic GameCube version, it would be that old SD resolution. So no, it's not just a copy and paste job that you'd expect for games on NSO.
Thus, Nintendo started considering repackaging some classic games as a new way of bringing titles to the Switch. Presumably, Mario games made the most sense as a trial for this system, especially with Super Mario Bros. 35th anniversary on the horizon. Then there were delays for reasons that we're all familiar with.
Like Paper Mario and Clubhouse games?
Because 2020 has been an eventful and yet also very uneventful year. And finally, Nintendo sheepishly announced Super Mario 3D All-Stars just 2 weeks before the package launches. Notice that 3D All-Stars is, according to Nintendo, only available until March of 2021. This certainly does sound like a trial before the rollout of similar packages. Let's hope this is the case. Some of us have been waiting for a better way to play The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for a very long time.
Wow, who can't wait for the lesser of two Zelda games that came out for Wii?
Nintendo is all set to release Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a package containing Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy. But there's a catch. Like many previous Nintendo products, 3D All-Stars will be a limited edition game, on sale from now until March 2021. Nintendo loves this method of releasing products, but fans are less thrilled, especially when these highly sought-after, limited supply items fall into the hands of scalpers who buy up supplies and sell them on at exorbitant rates.
Well, considering there's a digital option, then that shouldn't be a problem here.
This is already starting to happen. In the UK, at least one retailer has reached capacity for sales and begun cancelling pre-orders that can't be fulfilled. So why is Super Mario 3D All-Stars a limited edition game? Why doesn't Nintendo simply produce more of its popular titles, instead of locking them away once they reach a certain sales target or date?
Hell, all 3 of these games can be pirated. Many developers even created mods and enhancements, so why would this even be a concern at this point? I haven't even played Super Mario 64 since the version on the DS, and I can say I've been burned out of it after all the exposure I have gotten from it on YouTube.
In at least one previous case, Nintendo was actually forbidden by law from manufacturing more of a special edition bundle once it became popular. There are all kinds of roadblocks preventing Nintendo from producing more stock. First things first, why only make a game available for a short window of time? The timing of the release of 3D All-Stars is not unlike the NES Classic, a similar package of classic Nintendo games. When asked after the fact why Nintendo didn't continue manufacturing the product indefinitely, Reggie Fils-Aimé stated, "We had originally planned for this to be a product for last holiday. From our perspective, it's important to recognise where our future is and the key areas that we need to drive. We've got a lot going on right now and we don't have unlimited resources." This makes sense. The NES Classic released in November 2016, at a time when Nintendo was gearing up for the release of the Switch, and just needed a hot Christmas present item to carry them through the lucrative holiday season. After this was passed, the company needed to prioritise putting its resources into manufacturing and shipping Switch consoles instead.
God. Oh my God. They did it! They pulled through!
A similar sentiment was expressed by Satoru Iwata when discussing early amiibo shortages, when he said, "We are very sorry that we can't promise at what point we will likely be able to resolve the current situation, because figures such as these require a considerable amount of time to produce. Store shelf space is limited, and it is difficult to precisely predict the exact amount of overall demand. So, when releasing a product, Nintendo has to be very careful to make sure that they don't over-allocate resources. Everything from production and shipping costs to even the amount of space a product will take up on store shelves can affect a company's bottom line. Overestimate the demand for a product, and Nintendo can be left with situations like the early years of the 3DS and the Wii U, where sales simply don't match up with demand.
Oh my god! They made it!
Video.
It's not a steaming pile of fucking shit! Oh my god! They did it! They made it!
Video.
That's not shit! I found the gold at the end of the rainbow. Oh, maybe it's not gold, maybe it's bronze or something, but they made it!
Video.
It's not shit! It's not shit!
So, Nintendo will choose to make a game like Super Mario 3D All-Stars Limited Edition, available only for a short time, so that the company will be able to guarantee that they'll sell their entire stock. Under the current climate, because 2020 is that kind of year, Nintendo's manufacturing and distribution has been severely hindered.
So they get their plastic materials from China, all of which are used to make their game cartridges, consoles, controllers, and figurines. So what's China look like now? I'm guessing they're all fighting tooth and nail for survival, considering this was the conduit for COVID, right?
As such, the company needs to be more shrewd than ever in making stock decisions. A temporary, limited print run for a game allows the company a quick win over the holiday season, but won't overstay its welcome should Nintendo come up with another plan for these classic games in 2021 or beyond.
Like what? If there's a reason why Nintendo is making Mario 3D All-Stars for a limited time only, it's likely so that you don't have old games getting the top of the eShop charts all year. The NES Classic was only available for a limited time, only because Nintendo really wanted the Switch to sell, and also for games to sell, games that other companies made.
Considering the popularity of the game though, and the massive amounts of pre-orders that 3D All-Stars has received, why doesn't Nintendo simply extend the game's availability further into next year? After all, the company happily did this with the NES Classic when that proved popular. The NES Classic, though, was never formally labelled as a limited edition game.
It's a game all right. Anyway, she contradicts herself here. First she said Nintendo didn't want a problem where Nintendo created too much supply for little demand, and here she says how they never formally called the NES Classic a limited edition like it's a problem. It's possible that you can make a limited stock of something without calling it a limited edition. There's a chance that the NES Classic could have been like a Wii U situation where boxes of them never got purchased for years. That didn't happen of course, but it could have.
Nintendo's lawyers get very antsy when the company considers extending the availability of something they've previously insisted will only be available for a short time. In an investor Q&A, Satoru Iwata was once asked about a special limited edition Fire Emblem package that was available in Japan. The game's chaotic and unpredictable availability led to frustration, and the investor wanted to know why Nintendo wouldn't simply make the game easier to purchase.
Nintendo didn't make enough of that good all-popular Fire Emblem.
In response, Satoru said, "We completely failed to anticipate the demand for such kind of special package deal of the Nintendo 3DS hardware, decorated with a certain video game character on its surface, and the software. We first forecasted the consumer demand, prepared for manufacture, and began selling the product in limited quantities. As we obtained so many opinions, we actually considered if we could change the sales method to something different afterward. According to an outside attorney, however, those who had purchased it at the beginning might complain if they had bought it just because it was a limited edition. And this would certainly be likely to break the Japanese law for preventing unjustifiable extra or unexpected benefit and misleading representation.
Whatever the hell that means.
We would like to comply with as many consumer requests as possible, but at the same time we are highly responsible for compliance with Japanese laws. So that's that. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, having been labelled as a limited-run game, can't overstay its March 2021 sales deadline. If it did, it might contravene Japanese law surrounding limited edition collector's items. All of this simply means that if you want to get your hands on the game, you'll need to act quickly. Once Super 3D Mario All-Stars is gone, it's really gone.
But wait, you just said that they could re-release the game in another way. At least be consistent. They also made a video about Joe Biden and Animal Crossing, which is one of their most ratioed videos on their channel. I don't think I'll even bother with that one, though. They must treat him the same as they do Sakurai, like a god. If you're going to vote for a candidate just for playing a video game or playing a song,